Another thing I had a little bit of a controversial take on is I don't think the economic theory behind inflation is that it spurs activity, right? So
Mm,
in the US, we target 2% inflation. It's a bit higher than that now. But what's interesting is like most economists agree that 2% or so, something small amount of inflation is healthy because if you know your currency is going to be worth less in the future, it just increases spending pressure. So,
mm,
if I was thinking about buying a car, I'm more likely to buy it with high inflation.
mm,
But what's interesting, like the narrative in cryptocurrency is all inflation is always bad. And
mm,
I don't think that debate is settled yet. So the one counter argument you could have to EIP 1559 and ETH2 is simply that if the price of ETH is always going up, if the supply is always going down, it makes it a lot harder for me to justify spending ETH on a transaction or whatever it is I want to spend it on. And the best counter argument I've heard to that is, well, you're executing a transaction at the time you execute it, and you're going to do it so long as the value you get from that transaction is higher than the ETH that you spend to make it. But, that's kind of, I don't know if that's a perfect answer because there are always transactions on the fringe. Like you might be uncertain about making a transaction, uncertain if you want to buy ETH or sell it.
mm.
But perhaps in the back of everyone's mind and the collective consensus of everyone on Ethereum is that if supply is going down, if price is going up, I'm less likely to spend ETH and make it an active network, which is something we need for DeFi. So that is one counter argument to 1559 in the merge that I do want to point out. I think it's
Mm,
not settled yet. As
mm.
much as we're all excited about the supply going down, I'm not sure it's not just positive that's going to be great for DeFi and building on Ethereum.
Right. I think you touch on a fascinating point that I haven't heard before, at least the whole inflation and deflation argument. As you mentioned, economists call the whole 2% inflation as oil in the economic machinery. People are incentivized to spend, hence the economy grows, et cetera, et cetera. What happens in a situation, an extreme situation, where everything is, everybody transacts in Ethereum that is deflationary eventually, Bitcoin eventually. Like, what happens then? Do we just stop spending, or do we, economic growth is going to crumble? Uh,
Yeah,
it's going to be a very, very interesting thing to see in the future. What will happen? People, as more and more people get into crypto, are they getting more and more incentivized to spend less, save more? And how is that going to affect, everyday businesses that today thrive because we are spending perhaps more than might be good for us, but the business is open, which is a good thing. I think we can all agree.
yeah, and it's yeah, absolutely. It's also something we can think of intuitively, like even in your native currencies term. For me, I'm in the U.S., so the U.S. dollar. Like, if I have
Mm,
$1 million in my bank account, and I know that in 10 years that $1 million is going to have much more purchasing power, maybe I don't have to work now. Maybe that is enough to sustain me like for the rest of my life. And that deflation will make the value of whatever I'm holding much more. And so like perhaps then I'm less likely I don't want to purchase a house now because I know I can get a better one in 5 years, or I'm not going to purchase a car, or I'm not
true.
going to work or contribute. So there's a lot of economic questions that aren't yet answered in crypto in general, and especially on Ethereum, which I think are all exciting questions. But I don't think a lot of these concepts have really been tested yet in human history. I'm not positive, but I don't think we've ever had like a
Mm.
situation where the native currency is deflationary and there's a ton of economic activity around that, and how that impacts things in the 10-year time frame, 100 years, etc. Because that's what I'm most fascinated in. So it's going to be very interesting what happens with the Ethereum experiment. But